Hello, hello. Welcome back to another TLC video. Excuse me. Today we're going to be looking at kind of a build here where we focus less on ourselves and instead look at a way to create as much mayhem on the battlefield that is physically possible from us, the player side, anyway. And when I thought about that, I looked at it in form of at first like crowd control. How can we make a caster, let's say, in which all we do is just mess with the battlefield with terrain bonuses and or terrain effects, and then debuffs on the enemies and stuff like that. And I had a character kind of almost fully created, but after a while I thought, as a DM, would this really affect me as much as, say, a player who can just summon a bunch of shit all over my battle map? And what I realized is no, it doesn't come close. The player that can summon a whole bunch of random shit onto my battle map is far more annoying and has to be dealt with way more than the previously spoken. So with that in mind, all right, I give you what I deem as my summoner build. Now, I will admit that this is probably not going to be too shocking because, again, one, I think that, 5e, it's been out for so long that we just about have 6e coming out, right? In the form of 1D&D. So I'm sure that this build has probably been done before by another channel, but my hope is that I can at least provide something new to it, something that makes you go like, oh, okay, that's that's an interesting take, even if it's just a couple of changes. And as for always, whenever I am building my builds, I always try to cap myself at 10th, maybe 11th level, because one of my biggest pet peeves, and I've said this in every one of my character builds, is although it may be really, really awesome to have this super cool 4-class, multi-class, hybrid monster that comes online at level 15 that suddenly can do all of these super awesome things, but when most campaigns are over by level 12, 13, then it doesn't really matter to me that the best that this class has to offer is so late in the game, because odds are we're not going to get there. So instead, I always like to say that, hey, this class will come online by level 6, 7 at the latest, right? And hopefully by level 10, right, when things are really starting to kind of pick up, getting closer and closer to tier 3, then this class is fully online and you are able to go out there and kick ass and have fun doing it. So with that in mind, here we have the summoner build. All right, for our race, we are going Hobgoblin. Now, Monsters in the Multiverse has come a long way into power game creep, giving us a whole bunch of things that can add quite a bit of spice to our builds, and I think none is more kind of dominant there than all of the abilities that they gave races. For D&D, for Wizards of the Coast, to step in and say, hey, we're, in Tasha's, we're going to do the custom lineage thing where basically we say, hey, you can throw your stats wherever you want. We don't care. We're trying to step away from that, but then also turn around and say, oh, but by the way, all of these races now have some super cool, awesome abilities. I love it. All right. It gives us so much more versatility. And I think the Hobgoblin gives us so much for this class. But why? Well, first off, we have Dark Vision, so that's awesome. We have Fey Ancestry, which means, we cannot be charmed, put to sleep, or at the very least we have magical resistance to it. We have advantage on it. We have all of those, beginner things that we always like to see, basically if you're not a human. But then we have some more stuff here. All right, so if you play a Hobgoblin, you get a couple of other abilities, one of them being called Fey Gift. Basically, the Hobgoblin, every turn, has the ability to, as a bonus action or action, okay, Jeremy Crawford has already come out and said in a previous tweet years ago, I'm sure at this point, that said that you cannot use actions for bonus actions, but you can always use bonus actions as actions. So anytime something says a bonus action, you can use it as your action. So we're going to keep that in the back of our minds. So in the Fey Gift ability for the Hobgoblin, up to our proficiency bonus, we can use the help action as a bonus action or action if our bonus action is being used for something else, which it will be. All right, now what does this do? Well, one, it grants advantage on whatever creature we are helping. All right, and it says creature, not PC, all right, not other character, creature, which means our summons are creatures and they count. Now, on top of that, we can then also choose an ability to add, a modifier to add to that help action. We can either give it a temporary HP boost, all right, equal to 1d6 plus our proficiency bonus. We can give it the ability to cause disadvantage. All right, when it attacks a creature, that creature has disadvantage next turn, which can be huge, right? Or if we need to maybe kind of keep it to ourselves and maybe we need some assistance because, maybe some enemies have shown up, then what we can do is that we can, if we fail an action, an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, then what we can do is we can use the fortune from the mini to gain a bonus equal to the amount of support that we have around us. Now, I will admit, when I first read that, I immediately thought, oh my god, I'm going to have like 12 helpers. I'm going to get to have like a plus 12 to a roll here. Like, that's amazing. But then I read a little bit more, and it has a max of 3, which is not a small bit, right? To be able to add a 3 to something is not small, but it's not the 12 that I was kind of hoping for. But we pick our battles, and even though it was not exactly what I had hoped when I first read the sentence, everything else here really kind of does something for our summons, which that was kind of the whole point as I was looking through all of the fantastic race choices. And there are, you can definitely say that, the Eladrin would make a really, really good summon build. But I found myself just kind of asking the question, what race helps my summonings? And this is the one that does the most. So Hobgoblin for me is our race of choice. All right, for our stats, I am assuming point buy. All right, so if we're going that route, then we're going to go with our strength of 8. All right, we're going caster here, so we're not going to be able to do too much in terms of our strength. Dexterity 15, con 14, intelligence 10, just because I generally like to have something in my intelligence. The spells that have come out since the player's handbook have increased the amount of intelligence-based saving throws. So, I'm going to throw a 10 in my intelligence, although I could also completely see you wanting to put a 10 in your charisma, because I will say that there are far more charisma-based spells than wisdom. But our charisma will get a bonus here because of the class that we will be choosing. So, kind of up to you. I could definitely see a 10 in charisma and an 8 in intelligence if you wanted. Now, with that in mind, all right, custom lineage, if the DM allows it, all right, and what I say by that is that there's kind of, and I haven't looked up if there's an actual ruling. I'm sure Jeremy Crawford has had to answer this question before. I just haven't looked it up. But by my understanding, it seems like it's kind of up to DMs right now as to whether or not if a player uses the racial bonuses of a class, if they can also dip into the custom lineage line of Tasha's. And what I mean by that is that Tasha's, the previous book, the book before Monsters of the Multiverse, when it came out, it said that, hey, if you want, you can basically just take a +1 and 2 stats and get a free feat no matter what race you play. All right, basically it gives the variant human, option, right? Like it does what the variant human thing, but it does it differently. And since technically the Hobgoblin does not have 2 +1s, it said it gives one stat +2 and another stat +1, you are trading something by going custom lineage. So I've seen the argument where it's like, hey, I've seen it both times. I've seen it both ways. I've seen where some DMs say, hey, if you take all of the racial features of the race, like the Hobgoblins, Fey ancestry and all of that stuff, then that is your lineage. You can't go custom lineage. But I've also seen people go, but custom lineage is literally just an alternative of the stat modifier. So instead of a +2 in one stat and a +1 in these other stats, instead you just get a +1 and a feat, right? So I've kind of seen it been played both ways. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that it depends on who your DM is. All right, if you can, All right, if you can get, if your DM does allow your custom lineage here, I would definitely take it, because we are going to immediately take the spell Find Familiar. Now, thankfully, if your DM is like, hey, if you're taking the Hobgoblin and you're doing all of, you're taking all of those other racial features, you have to do the +2/+1. That's okay. All right, this build still works just fine. Our familiar spell is just going to be eating away at something, at another resource of ours. So everything still works. This just kind of gives us the ability to cast Find Familiar with a resource that we have more of than our wild shapes. So still works out. Everything's fine, but just check with your DM, see how they feel about the custom lineage alteration to stat numbers, because I've seen it been used both ways. But whatever the case, let's get into the meat here. Levels 1 through 4, we are going all Druid. And specifically, we're going Circle of the Wildfire. Now, I will be honest, I will make the argument that I almost think Circle of the Shepherd would be better. The only reason I say that is because for how awesome it's going to be, and for how many summonings we're going to have, there is going to come a point in this character's career where all we can do on our turn is to move. Every other thing that we have is going to be used. In fact, it's even going to get to the point where our character won't even be able to use its Hobgoblin help action, which, to be able to impose disadvantage or give temp HP to one of our summonings, like, some of that might be really useful. So to lose that, now thankfully we don't lose it for a while, but to eventually, to know that I'm going to lose that sometime, and because I like to be efficient as much as I can, I could see the argument that what you gain by going Shepherd of the Druid, i.e. your totem, which allows you to do a lot of healing and stuff, allows you to get some nice bonuses there with Circle of the Shepherd, not to mention at level 6, which we will get to here with this Druid, to be able to make all of our animals' damage magical, and to give them bonus HP equal to, it's like 2 times the the amount of hit dice that they have, which, for many of our animals will have like 3 or 4 hit dice, so that's an extra 6 to 8 hit points each, which is like an extra hit or 2, especially at 6th level. I could definitely see Circle of the Shepherd, and to be honest, I almost would argue that it's probably better, given that the Hobgoblin already has something that they are going to be using via their help action. But this is the summoning build. So if I'm going with a summoning build, in my mind, I have to try to create a build that has just as much shit around them as physically possible. And all I could think of is just Circle of Wildfire. So I could see both, and to be honest, if I had to choose one, I think power game-wise, I think Circle of the Shepherd would be better. I think it would give us a little bit more versatility with our totems. I think that it would give our companions a little bit more, hit points. It would make their weapon, their attacks magical, which definitely is going to be something useful later on. But I just, if it's the summoner build, so I got to give it another summon here. And so with that, Circle of the Wildfire, we get our fiery little companion, and it does do a decent amount of damage. In fact, it will be doing probably some of the most damage that our summonings do. So with that in mind, I'm willing to say that, hey, Mr. Hobgoblin here is going to be our Circle of Wildfire. Now, since we are going Druid, that opens up the door to things like talking to beasts, all right, which is going to definitely come into handy here. We get our ability to summon a creature already, technically 2, all right, because either 1, all right, we are able to, if your DM allowed the custom lineage, you now have Find Familiar as a first level spell, which means you will always have that familiar on your shoulder, or in your pocket, or running alongside you, whatever form it is taking. And now you'll also have your Fire Spirit. So you already have, two creatures, coming alongside you and helping you out in battle, So already we're looking pretty good here. And at 4th level, we of course have our ability score improvement. Now, I would argue that Fey Touched is just too good to pass up. Now, technically, if you're DM did allow custom lineage, then your wisdom is only a 16. So it would be a 17. But if your DM says, hey, you took the hobgoblin, you took its racial features and stuff, that is your lineage, you cannot do it, then that means you could have put your +2 into that 15. You'd have a 17 wisdom then. So technically this Fade Touch would make it an 18. So this is how come I say that either way, it doesn't matter, whichever one your DM rules or doesn't rule, you'll always get something. It'll always even out, right? But anyway, now, according to Fade Touch, right, we get Misty Step, which is super, super awesome. Love it. But we also get to add a spell that we can, cast once a day for free, which I always love, and add it to our spell list. Now, some of the spells that I would put in there would maybe be Speak with Animals. All right, if, say, your DM is ignoring, all right, again, if you had gone your Druid of the Shepherd ability, like I had stated earlier, okay, if you kind of went away from the Circle of Wildfire, all right, and you went Druid of the Shepherd, all right, maybe you should take Speak with Animals, all right, if you ignored the Druid of the Shepherd. But besides that, you could go Animal Friendship. All right, this way maybe you start a combat with 3 creatures with you, your Familiar, your Wildfire Spirit, and then whatever maybe, creature you came across along the way. Maybe you befriended them and they are assisting you, which, by the way, Animal Friendship is not a concentration. So, you can have all 3 of these open at the same time. Or you could do Command. And the reason why I like Command so much as the spell choice here is because Command is such a versatile spell. To be able to just tell an enemy to go prone, or to what is it? It's like to beg, all right, which basically just means that creature has to get down on the ground, weapon down, and that is all they get to do on their turn. To be able to just basically tell a creature that they can do nothing next turn is absolutely insane. So really the choice is up to you, but those are the 3 that I would most likely include on my list. All right, levels 5 and 6. At level 5, both of them are going to be Druid here. So at level 5, we have unlocked the most broken spell that we will ever use, and it is going to be the spell that we use in every single one of our combat scenarios. And that is, of course, Conjure Animals. All right. So, according to Conjure Animals, all right, we can summon up to either 1 creature of a challenge rating of 2, 2 of a challenge rating of 1, 4 of a challenge rating of half, or 8 of a challenge rating of 1/4. Now, it might be tempting to summon a big polar bear or a giant elk. And I understand that, and that's really, really awesome, and maybe in certain situations it could be useful. But that's not the point. What we want to do is to create as much mayhem and as much headache for our DM as physically possible. And for that reason, we are always going to choose the 8 beasts of a challenge rating of 1/4 or lower, which is fine with us, because that allows us to use wolves, which, unless of course your DM does read the final sentence here, which does say that or the very first sentence, I should say, in which you may get to choose the monster, or you get to choose which side of the spell, but the DM chooses the beast. Which, if your DM does do that, I have never played with a DM who does that. Usually the DM says, yeah, just tell me what you summon and let's go. Because, that way it's on me. It's my responsibility to come to the table with, the conjured animal, summonings, their stat blocks and stuff. But what is so nice about it is, 1, we are flooding the map with a whole bunch of bags of hit points, targets that the monsters are going to have to deal with, but also they have pack tactics. Wolves have pack tactics. They have advantage now. And they're not pathetic. 2d4 plus 2, I believe, is their bite, which isn't horrible. And if they have advantage, over the period of 1 round, they may end up attacking more often than not. So you wind up with, anywhere between 5, 5, maybe 6 attacks, successful. That's 10 to 12 d4 plus 12, right? Like, that's a lot of damage stacked up, overall. So definitely useful, definitely better than taking 1 big creature overall. Plus, it just gives us way more shit to throw at the DM. Now, at 6th level, we have our Enhanced Bond. This gives us a D8 for any heal that we do, as long as our Fire Spirit is with us, or increase our fire damage by a D8. Not the best, and this is once again why I say that going Circle of the Shepherd would have probably been better power game-wise, because their 6th level ability is so much more useful for your summons. But we would also be missing one summon, which, if I'm trying to make a summoning build, I just couldn't explain away. So, Enhanced Bond, it's not bad, but, I mean, we're going to get to the point where we're not really able to cast too many spells on our turn anyway. So, yeah. Alright, so real quick, let's do a nice little summon check-in. Alright, so assuming we've come across at least one beast, alright, along the way in the forest, in the wilds, whatever, and we have our familiar with us, we have a total of 11 summonings. We have 8 from Conjure Animals. We have 1 from our Find Familiar. We have 1 from the Fire Spirit. And we have the one that the beast that we have charmed along the way, alright, thanks to the casting of Animal Friendship. So, in total, we have 11 summonings that can affect our DM's monsters on most combats, because it's a 3rd level spell, which we have 2 of. Now, all having these added bonuses, alright, so all of those extra things that we get to do, such as our Hobgoblin abilities, alright, being able to assist them, alright, all of this is able to check in. Now, I didn't do any breakdown of, like, say, damage-wise, because, again, that wasn't necessarily the point of this build. The point of this build was to just, how much shit can I throw into the DM's face? As much as I possibly can. But I would say that if we had to look at it in terms of successful hits and things like that, this definitely would not be, top tier damage output or anything, but think of the versatility, and also think of the fact that when you go into combat and you're a pure spellcaster, a lot of the time pure spellcasters, the bane of pure spellcasters is blowing through their spell slots in combat. Here, when you go into combat, when this summoner goes into combat, so far, the only tool that they've used, the only spell that they've used is either Animal Friendship, 1st level spell, Find Familiar, if they had to use it 1st level spell slot instead of, using their Wild Shape, 1 Wild Shape to do their Fire Spirit, and then 3rd level spell slot for Conjure Animals. That's it. And depending on how the combat goes, you may very well end up with some of those, things surviving into the next round, or into the next combat. And then after that, all it is our Hobgoblin abilities. So we're leaving ourselves with so many resources that, to me, I think it kind of evens out here. So even though it's not the biggest damage dealer, you're not really using too much. So you're able to kind of keep a lot of resources in your back pocket and just let your summonings just go do the work. Alright, level 7 through 9, we're going Ranger. Alright, we've realized that, sometimes Mother Nature, for how beautiful it is and for how much it needs to be protected, it's the way of life, man. Some monsters just gotta be put down. Alright, so, you can only be prey for so long. Sometimes you gotta be the predator. And so we are going to go Ranger, specifically Beastmaster, which I never thought in a million years I would ever put a build together with a Beastmaster. So here we go. This is an era of firsts for me. Now, hear me out, all right? And I hate that I misspelled here, so we're just going to ignore that and just pretend that I totally understand English language and spelled out the correct here. So hear me out. Thanks to Tasha's, the Beastmaster has been improved with one very simple fact, and that is that our Beastmaster Ranger's animal companion, it is worded that you summon forth an animal companion. It is not a spell. There's no spell slot. There's no concentration. And whatever you summon can come in multiple forms. You can summon an air beast. You can summon a land beast. You can summon a beast of the sea, which gives us a lot of super awesome versatility. And now that we have this creature, we now have the ability to, as an action, send our fire spirit out to do something. And as a bonus action, we can command this animal. So basically, on our turn, every single facet of our turn, our action, bonus action, all of it is being used to send out monsters and creatures and beasts, I guess specifically, and Fae, out into our enemy's turn and just mess with them. So I love it. I also love the fact that, if you do go, if you do go Ranger, you are opening the door a little bit to, if you need to, all right, you now have a nice little bonus. I would highly suggest taking either the +2 archery fighting style. That way, if for some reason, you end up, maybe, you're on the 3rd combat of the day and you just don't have the ability to cast, another conjure animals or something. Going Ranger does open the door a little bit to us being able to, be useful outside of just summoning things. So going Ranger here does help us out in multiple ways, which brings us here to the very last level. All right, level 10. All right, this wasn't too crazy. All right, this build didn't require too much craziness here, so it was pretty self-explanatory. At level 10, it's really up to you. You don't really get too much at 7th level Druid, except you do unlock 4th level spell slots, and there are some really nice 4th level Druid spells. But being 1 level away from an ability score improvement, and for what it can do for us, I can't imagine not taking it. So for me, at 10th level, we're going to be a 4th level Beastmaster Ranger, solely so that we have that ASI, that ability score improvement, which I'm going to be taking Resilient and putting it in our Constitution. By doing this, we are making it so that we now get to add our proficiency bonus to our con saves, which means if we are, by the time we're level 10, right, our DM has learned that, okay, you asshole, you're just going to keep summoning shit and throwing it in front of my monsters, so I'm going to give them the ability to teleport, I'm going to give them the ability to attack at range, I'm going to give them the ability, I'm going to make it so that they come after you, so that they can break that concentration, and 8 of your 11 monsters, of your summonings are just gone, right? Because I'm breaking your concentration, which would definitely be a big deal, right? That would definitely hurt us. So by getting this nice, healthy bonus into our concentration, and being able to have that +3, don't forget, we're a hobgoblin, which means we would in theory be able to, if nothing else, all right, if our help action turn is now being used, all right, we've basically lost our hobgoblin help action because every single facet of our turn is being used to command a beast to do something, then that means that we basically will always be able to use our reaction to add that +3, because I'm assuming that there's at least a few of your summonings within, 30, 40 feet or so of you. That is the range that you have to have in order to use the ability. By going Resilient, we now have a much better chance of maintaining concentration so that we don't lose those, very, very precious summonings. But really, it's entirely up to you. All right, at 10th level, this build is basically fully online at 9th level. And it's fully online before this, the beast, because again, in my mind, the fact that we have to trade our hobgoblin help abilities, which to create disadvantage and to, add HP and stuff, like that's some pretty useful things. So to give that up to summon a beast companion, by going Ranger, I think it's a pretty even trade. So to be honest, I would consider this class online as early as like level 6, right? 5 level 6. But, here at level 9, you're already here. Start going into whatever you want to go into. If you want to multi-class into something else, go for it. I will admit you'll have to probably stick to something like either Cleric, or something else that, that only uses either Dexterity or Wisdom, because those are the only 2 stats that we have a decent number in. But overall, like I said, it is entirely up to you here. So let's do our final summoning check-in. All right, so with the same similar assumptions as last time, we now have 12 summonings that we get to put on the board. 8 from our conjure animals, 1 from our animal friendship, if we've met the beast along the way, 1 from find familiar, our beast companion, and our fire companion. The conjured animals will go on their own turn, all right, which usually the DM is just like, hey, they go after you, but they have their own turn, they have their own initiative, which means they get to go and do their own thing. Our bonus actions will be to order our companion, which then leaves our actions up for either spells, help action, or commanding our fire companion. And there might be times where, you have to choose, right? There might be times where, hey, Mr. Beast Companion, you're just going to run off into the side of the wood for a second so that my bonus action can be used to command my fire spirit, which is actually what it's supposed to be using, is our bonus action. Because our fire companion probably does a little bit more damage than our beast companion. I'm assuming. I didn't crunch the numbers, but I feel like they just do. Which then frees our action up for spells. And what's really nice is that by having a familiar out there and our fire companion out there, neither one of which, by the way, requires concentration, that means that we can cast any spell that will probably get pretty darn close. Because our fire companion and our fire familiar allows us to cast spells that are touch through those creatures, through those entities. So, there may come a monster or something where it's like, hey, I really need to cast, this spell, through this monster. I really need to cast Banishment. I really need to cast Polymorph. I really need to cast, once you unlock your 4th level spells for Druid, of course, there are a lot of really awesome spells that, maybe it is useful to cast that spell through one of these companions. And the entire time that all of this is happening, you are sitting pretty in the very far back, taking no damage at all, conserving spell slots, unless you start using them to through your familiars and stuff. But you're untouched. This is how you go an entire battle, never seeing actual physical combat, but the whole time being an absolute nuisance to your DM. This would piss me off to no end if I was DMing a game and this was the build that my player had come up with, which is why I now share it with you. So go off, explore, use it, or don't use it. Like I said, I really think that, if I were trying to use it in my own class, if I was trying to build a summoning build, if I knew it was going to, well, first off, if I knew it was going to go high, like super high level, I'd probably have gone Wizard. I would have gone Conjuration Wizard. Simply because at a really high level, I think it's level 14, they never fail a con save. Like, their summonings are there until they die, which is fucking amazing. And they also have the ability to summon some very powerful creatures via Lesser Demon Construct, I think, stuff like that. Aberration, summon Sorrow Spawn, and all of those super awesome things. So if I knew it was going to go high level, I'd probably go Conjuration Wizard, but I looked at what could I build that would be done by 10th level, and this is what I got. So I hope you found it entertaining. I hope it kind of made you at least go, damn, that's actually pretty cool. But overall, I had fun making it. I hope you had fun listening. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe maybe, and I will catch you next time.